Hey everyone, this is me, the Undead Viking. I'm up here in the frigid north in Minnesota, talking to you from my basement. It is super dark outside because it's winter. Anyway, a while back I did a review for a game called Angel Fury, which was at its core a tactical miniatures game about basically angels and devils fighting over the soul of a single person. And I was contacted about playing that game and offering my thoughts in a video by the Frixelius family, which I'm sure you probably know who they are as far as board game designers and what have you. And I really liked that game. It was, you know, it was extremely well balanced, a lot of fun to play, and I really liked the subject matter as well. It kind of just struck a weird chord with me. You can go check out that video. I'm not really good about linking old videos and what have you, but if you search for Angel Fury on my channel, you can go check that one out. So out of the blue, I got contacted by this amazing design group asking if I'd be interested in taking a look at this cool little Viking game they had decided. Now obviously, so if you're new to my channel or whatever, I call myself the Undead Viking for lots of different reasons, pretty boring reasons if truth be told. But one of the things about it is true, is that I am of mostly Scandinavian origin. I am mostly Norwegian. There's a little bit of Swedish thrown in there, and a little bit of French, and a little bit of Slav as well. But I am mostly Norwegian. I'm very Scandinavian, which is very common if you live up in this area of the world where I am. But anyway, regardless. So I like Viking games. I own a lot of Viking games, some good, some bad. I've been paring down my collection a lot recently, and the Viking games stay though. I've gotten rid of a few that I just know I won't play, but I mean, especially things that just kind of like excited me as far as like a Viking game is concerned. I've held on to them. So when I was contacted and they're like, hey, we got this cool little Viking game we want you to take a look at. It isn't little, I shouldn't have called it that, but I was definitely really interested. And so they sent me the game, I played it, it was super cool. I said, yeah, sure, I'll do a video for you. And because I mean, if I didn't like it, I wouldn't do a video. But so you can kind of spoiler alert for the summary. Now, the box that I have for it is over there, and I'm not going to show it to you because it's got the old art on it. And they actually sent me the cover art for the for the new game, and that's the thumbnail that you see on this video. If you want to go check that out. Now, my plan was I was going to print that out, and I was gonna like stick it onto the box so I could just hold the box and show it to you. But my good printer, well, it crapped out on me. So I have this. I can show you this. Like I'm holding a box. But it's not nearly like the box or whatever. So I apologize. You're just gonna have to imagine that I'm flipping the box around right now or what have you. But anyway, so this is Fate, Defenders of Grimheim. This is a cooperative game for up to 4 players. You can play it solo. I definitely have played it solo, and I'll talk a little bit about that in my final thoughts as well. But it is a game that it is fun, it is exciting, it is tough, which is something that I want in a cooperative game. But also, it kind of surprised me in a few ways. I mean, I feel like I've gotten to the point now where if I read the rules to a board game, I can peg it pretty well. I can just say, this is going to be fun. I can tell from the get-go. And I think that kind of dooms me a little bit when it comes to games, because like I'll read rules and I'll be like, ooh, this doesn't look good at all. And then in a few cases of those, I've taken down my preconceived notion of the game and I played it, and games have surprised me. And now there's lots of games out there that I've said, ooh, and then somehow along the lines I play it and I'm like, ooh, I was right. But maybe I should get rid of that preconceived notion. But like I've said to many people, if somebody is a plumber and they've done plumbing in thousands of houses, and they said this plumbing looks bad or this plumbing design looks bad, I'm going to trust that plumber. So more often than not, they're probably right. And I'm sitting here after like being involved in the board game hobby, both as like a YouTuber and a reviewer and as a publisher. I've played thousands of board games, and I feel like maybe I have a little bit of knowledge, if you will, when it comes to these things. But anyway, regardless, I read the rules. It looks super cool. I like the premise of it. It is, at its heart, a tower defense game because you need to protect the town that's in the middle of the board. So if you've, like, there's definitely been games out there that have taken that tower defense idea, maybe even like games like After the Empire, maybe like Grey Fox Games. But the whole point here is that I like them, and I like cooperative games as well. And so I knew I was going to like this, and lo and behold, I did like it. So why don't I show you some rambling overview of how the game is played. I'll try not to get any rules wrong, and then we'll come back here and I'll give you my final thoughts. All right, cool. Let's do this. All right, so this is Fate, Defenders of Grimheim. I'm going to show you how the game is played. Briefly, I'm not going to dive into a full whole game span type of exculpatory showing here, but I am going to just show you the basics of what you'll be doing on your turns and how the monsters come out of the woodwork and try to tear apart your town. I will mention this is a prototype. It's a nice looking prototype, but things might look different between what you see here and once the game is published. Alright, so these 3D printed miniatures here, some of them are figures. You can see they're here. And some of them are these little buildings. Those are the buildings of Grimheim. Depending upon the number of players you have, there is a certain number of buildings in there. The more players, the more buildings. I've set up a 3-player game, so I have 8 buildings in Grimheim, including this Fountain of Freya, which will be the last thing that will fall. If ever you run out of buildings in your village, you lose the game, meaning the monsters have come and devastated everything. How long do the adventurers need to protect this town? Well, it depends on how long you want the game to last. There are 2 tracks here, over here and over here. Depending upon how long you want the game to last, you can either take a longer track, which is going to last you about 40-45 minutes per player, or if you want to take the shorter track, you're looking about 25-30 minutes per player. I just placed the turn marker on the longer track for this case, but depending upon what you're doing that evening, maybe you don't have time for a big giant game. Maybe you want to play a shorter game. So there you go. On the map itself, besides the town of Grimheim, you will see lots of different areas. Like you see forests here. Forests are important. If you are in a forest, whether you are a monster or you are a player character, one of the heroes that is trying to save the village, you get offered protection. It is tougher to see you, tougher to hit in combat, so you can use that tactically to your advantage. Obviously, the monsters can do that as well. You will also see that there's also like weird locations, like, here's the witch cabin, or now fair, or like the robber camp over here. What are those important for? Well, I'll talk about that in a little bit, but what they're important for is quests. Not only will your players need to defend the town against these monsters that are going to be making their way and trying to reach the town, but they also will have different treasures that they have in a deck of cards that they get at the beginning of the game, and that those treasures will tell you what you need to do to succeed at quests. And sometimes it will tell you you need to go to the worm lair or the robber camp or what have you and complete a quest, and then you can get that equipment. This isn't a game where like you're going to win unless you upgrade your characters that you're playing. And I'll talk about that more, how the upgrades work and how you do that when I talk more about this player board that you see right in front of you, and also the different decks that the players have. There are 2 decks of cards that show the monsters that come out. One is red and one is yellow. Depending upon which side of like how far down on the track you are, you notice there's a yellow here and a red there. When the game tells you to draw a card and get monsters out, that's the color of the card that you take to do that. And I'll talk about that too once I talk about player turns, because the monster turn happens after the player's turn has concluded. It should be mentioned that there are some regions, like the mountainous regions here. Monsters can go through there, but like the players cannot. They are considered impassable. Also, it should be mentioned that pretty much if something's in a spot, whether it is a player or a monster, you can't go through there unless you have some sort of special ability or some special power, or there are some rules that govern that. But for the most part, you are blocked. You can't get into that. I should also mention that you might be able to see this kind of yellow line that surrounds Grimheim. Just think of that as a giant hex. You don't actually have to walk through Grimheim. If your character is out here and you move into Grimheim, their movement stops, and the next turn when they move, they can just exit over there. It's just one big giant hex in the middle that you can move around in. So use that ability and that part of the rules to your advantage to help with your mobility as you're moving through the board. You'll also see that there are some places out here where the monsters show up, and the different types of monsters will show up because of those places. These two places over here, the undead come out. Over here it is the goblins, and down here it is like the fire giants or the fire monsters will come out of there. Each type of monster has their own kind of special abilities and things going on with them. Small little goblins are super fast, so they're tough to catch up with, but they die pretty easily. And also, if these monsters are next, if any goblin, or I guess they're called trollkin, but goblins are part of trollkin. If a trollkin is next to another trollkin, in any way, shape, or form, like in a hexagon, they're close to each other, and they are able to, and they get to attack a character. They get an extra die per other trollkin they're next to, so they kind of group up and help fight the heroes, if you will. When you're talking with the fire creatures down here, they actually get to attack at range, so their ranges too. So if they end their turn and they're like within a range of 2 of a hero, they get to attack and attack those heroes. Now, and it should mention that when those do attack the heroes, if any monster has a choice between like it's adjacent or within 2 of more than one hero, the players will decide which hero that monster attacks, and so you'll discuss that. Because as a cooperative game, you kind of work together, and you'll say, well, you got more hit points than me. You take this attack, and that'll give me a chance to head back to the village and heal up, stuff like that. If you played a cooperative game, you're probably very familiar with processing that sort of thing. The last thing with the undead over here, the big thing with the undead is their top level unit, the Draugr. They get they have armor, meaning that they absorb the first point of damage and take no damage until that armor is dissipated on attack, and that regenerates with each attack. So they may have the hit points of 5, but the first damage you do to them, it doesn't take. So you have to do more than 1 point of damage when you hit to wound them in any way. Also, they have on these dice there are, and I might as well just if I can show you how this looks, but you can see one side has this little rune on it, and I might not be able to see that real clearly, and there are hits on the die like so, but there's this rune, and the runes are misses, but certain heroes' abilities and stuff like that will have certain effects with the runes. Well, the dead get to hit with a rune, so it's one of those really powerful abilities that they have. They can really stink. And I might as well, since I was talking about the dice, I might as well mention that this side has the hit, but it has a circle around it. If you roll that, the one with the circle around it, that won't hit somebody that's in the forest. Remember I talked to you about having that cover? So if you're on the plains and you roll that, your target is not under cover, you'll hit. But if they are in the forest, unfortunately, you will not. All right, so that should give you a pretty good idea of what you're dealing with as far as the different locations on the board. And when you start the game, you will draw one of the yellow monster cards for each player that is playing, and then you'll seed the board with monsters. So then that will get you started as far as the monsters are concerned. Oh, and one last thing I should mention. In these monster decks, there are actually like boss monsters that'll have special powers and abilities themselves that each are distinct. And those will be represented by these discs that you'll place on the board when those boss monsters get summoned and get placed out. They are super tough and they are difficult to beat, but if you're able to defeat them, the rewards are great. So I'm just going to show you an empty player board so you can kind of see what that looks like without all the cards and stuff on it that you can see there. When you have a player board, you will have a place to put your experience/gold. Experience and gold are kind of weird in this game. They're kind of used interchangeably. Some characters like this dwarf that of course I took the dwarf, like some of his quests say pay gold, and that's gold. But in other cases it'll be like use experience, and then you use experience. And like, so these yellow cubes are used to represent gold and experience. So they're interchangeable, don't worry about it. It's just the way the game works. And then like you'll have this little upgrade pattern here. You start on that green square, and then the very first time you have 5 gold or experience, you can then pay 5 to do an upgrade. And I'll talk about upgrades here in just a second or two, but then like the next one will be worth 6, the next one's 8, and then the next one's 10, and then it just stays at 10. So every 10 experience you can do another upgrade. You have these action button cylinders here that I have, and then on your turn you'll take 2 actions and you'll place those on these actions. We're moving, attacking, preparing, focus, mend, and practice. And I'll talk about those just in a second. The reason why you have those 2 is so you can't do the same action again. Like you can only do each action 1 time. So that's why you have, and you'll place it onto that box. There are free actions, as you can see, the list. And I should mention, I love games that do that, where they have the rules printed on the board, so you don't have to go back to the rules. Like, here's the monster turn right here, listed right there. All the attacks and hit points of all the monsters are listed there, as well as their special abilities are listed right on the board. I wish more companies would do that and just have that information right there. Or just really good player aids as well, right? But this is one of those things when I was playing this, either with my family or my friends, it was one of those things like, how do we do this? Oh, it's right there. How many hit points does that? Oh, it's right there. You know, it was super handy and super helpful. So I really like that. But, you know, and then on the player board itself, it has like, here, end of turn, how that works, and what's your free actions, and things like that. So I think it's pretty cool. I like how that works. So my player board's already set up with the dwarf character, and so, but I should mention that like, you get this big stack of cards for each player, and this, you know, I mean, this is the Shield Maiden character for that you can play in the game, but they're all super cool and have neat abilities, each and every one of them. Now they're separated. There's, you know, obviously the discard pile. I'm not going to go through that. You probably understand what discard pile is, but each one of these, there is like an ability here. These are your ability cards. These are your equipment cards, and this is what sends you on your quests. And then these are event cards, and event cards are used for special abilities. And you can only have you can have a hand of 4 event cards at any one time, and you have to use them up. Those will go in the discard pile then when you use them up. You can draw or get more event cards into your hand if you have 4, but then you have to discard. So just keep that in mind. You can only ever have 4 event cards. You do have some starting equipment. You'll have your starting character right there. You'll have their starting weapon. In this case, it's my mining pick here, and also a special ability. And I might as well just show you this card real quick. Boulder's special ability is called Rapid Strike. And with Rapid Strike, if he has... Oh, and I should mention... No, that's the backwards. So this is the front. You can see it says starting right there. But it says Baldur's ability, Rapid Strike 1. If I have 3 mana, I can perform an attack action. Basically, if I've already done an attack this turn, if I have 3 mana on this card, I can spend that 3 mana, and then I get to go ahead and make another attack, a free attack, if you will. Now, if I upgrade this ability, remember I talked about the upgrades? When you upgrade, you can upgrade your hero just in general. You can upgrade ability. You can take a new ability, so you have some different options. If you upgrade it, it goes to the other side. In this case, Rapid Strike 2. It perform an attack action, may be used several times per turn. You notice it has a 2 instead of 3 mana to use it. So it just builds it. And you can look at the backs and decide what you want to do. In this case, I might as well just show you Boulder, the dwarf, and it kind of gives you a little background or whatever, and tell you what it is. But here he is. Starting, it's armor, always prevent 1 damage. He has a 3, so he attacks with 3 dice just normally, and he has 6 hit points. And you can see here, if I upgraded him, he has 5 and he gets another hit point. So you can upgrade, but you have to make sure you start where it says starting on the card, and so you start with that. All right, and then when you get more abilities, like say you upgrade and you get the ability that's here, you will then move it over to that side. And I should mention also that these abilities, you'll shuffle the deck and these will be face up. You can't see what the next card is on there. The same thing goes for your equipment. You can't see the next card that's underneath it until you have actually taken the card. Since we're talking about equipment cards, I might as well just show you the Dwarf Helm. Now up here, it'll have a listing of how you're going to attain this. And this one says, end your turn in the Temple Ruins. And so basically, if my dwarf character, the Temple Ruins are right here, if I end my turn there, I would succeed at getting the Dwarven Helm. The Dwarven Helm is a piece of armor, and it'll prevent a damage for me. Now how it works, and so as soon as I do that, right, I can then place it over with my other cards that are over here. Same with abilities. And when I gain abilities, I can place them over in my tableau, if you will. So in this particular Dwarf Helm, it says that it protects me against 1 damage. So if I'm fighting and something manages to hit me, say maybe it hits me for 2 damage, I can use my Dwarf Helm and I can prevent myself of damage by taking a red cube and putting it on top of it like so. However, and the same thing goes for if I take damage as my dwarf. If I take damage, I just put the red cubes on top of them like so. But here is the situation where with the Dwarf Helm, it has this red 3 down here at the bottom, meaning that it can take 3 points of damage before it can't be used again. So one of the actions you can do is you can mend. And if you're in the village and you take a mend action, you can actually heal your equipment. The equipment doesn't get destroyed or anything. It just takes some damage. And so that's one of the things, and I kind of like that. I like the fact that instead of having some shield dice or what have you that you have to roll to see if you block damage or anything like that, it's an actual tactical decision that you can do to absorb that damage and decide, is it worth it for me right now or should I hold on to it? That sort of thing. All right, so how do you do a turn? I covered a lot of stuff. But basically on your turn, what you're going to do is you're going to take 2 actions. And then any free actions that you possibly can do because of abilities or equipment or what have you. And when you take your actions, you're just going to do it. Moving is simple. You're going to move, every time you move, you get to move 3 spaces. And this is a hex game, so you'll just move your 3 spaces. Maybe, like I said, I want to take my dwarf and I want to move him up to, try to get close. Remember, you can leave it from anywhere on where Grimheim is. And I want to try to get up to the Temple Ruins, end my turn there, so I can get my Dwarf Helm. However, that's probably not a really good choice right away, because no monsters are coming out from here or here, so I can't really defend the town if I go in those directions. So maybe, instead, what I want to do is I want to maybe fight goblins or whatever and get ready for that. So I can go 1, 2, 3. Now, why did I go here? Well, I'm in the robber camp, but again, maybe one of the other players has a thing that says, hey, whoa, that's my quest. My quest says to go to the robber camp. Don't go there. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine, I won't go there. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. And then hopefully nobody says, nah, the witch cabin is poor, I don't want to do that. That's fine. I'm just going to go to this spot, and I'm going to go to that location. Why? Because I've got undead, they're going to be coming this way, and so I'll be prepared to do it. And now, since I've done that, I take this, and I put that on my move action, and then my next action maybe is to prepare. So I'm going to go ahead and prepare, and I'm going to take an event card and put it in my hand. And this one says, short temper, kill an adjacent monster with no more than 2 remaining health. I can just play this card, and as long as the monster has 2 health or less, I can just play it, and they're dead. So I'm going to hold on to that. Make sure I keep that card. Remember, I can have 4 event cards in my hand. So we'll just hold on to this one, and we'll play it maybe at a later time. All right, so that would be my turn. Now the other actions you can do is our attack, and I'm going to show you how attacks work here in just a second. When I'm gonna show you how the monster turns work. But the other things you can do is you can focus. If you focus, you just go ahead and get a green mana that you can then place on one of your abilities if you want to. If you mend, you can heal 2 damage to yourself if you are out and about on the board. If you're inside the village of Grimheim, you can heal 5 damage. And then if you heal 5, when you heal that 5 damage, you can heal your equipment with that 5 damage as well. And the last thing you can do is practice. And to practice, if you practice, what you do is you just get a gold cube. And so you place that over there. And that's, so you can gain some experience. Now at the end of your turn, if you want to, you can, if you have enough experience, you can do your upgrade. And so like the first one's 5. So if I had, 2 more gold cubes in my starting thing here, I could spend those and I could do my upgrade. And I talked about that. You can upgrade. You can take the first card that's on the ability, and then you can and then place that in your abilities over there, or upgrade an ability you already have, or upgrade your hero if you haven't already done that. Also, you can, at your end of your turn, you reset your actions after you've done your 2 things. You will go there. You do that upgrade, like I said. If you have any abilities that gain mana, some of these things like this card here, and it might be a little tough to see that far away, but it has this green 1 on the bottom. That means that it gains a mana at the end of the turn. So any ability that has that, you'll go ahead and add mana to that. So I already have 1 on there, so that would gain another mana. So we're almost to that 3 that we can use to, and there's no limit to that. You can just keep adding and adding and adding mana to those abilities as it goes. And then you draw 1 card, so you can draw another event card. So this one is Seek Shelter. Move 2 spaces into any location. Remember, the locations are like that witch cabin that I'm already in, or the robber camp. And you can switch a card. Now, switching a card means you take the card that's on the top of these decks, like maybe it's something you don't want. Like maybe I don't want this steady ability that's on there right now, and I can flip it, I can put it on the bottom, and now Wrecking Ball is the new ability that I can gain if I do an upgrade. You don't have to do that, but you have the choice if you wish to switch the card. And so that's just like maybe the top equipment or whatever just isn't going to be helpful, and you're just going to do that. All right, so that would be my turn. And remember, this is a cooperative game, so the way the turns work is that the players decide who goes when and who does what. Right? So then the other players would go, and I'm just going to place them on the board. Maybe that person did go to the robber camp like they said they wanted to go to for whatever reason. Who cares? Now, the big thing is that when the monsters go, the monsters will move. And when the monsters move, and it might be tough to see, but like the monsters have arrows. In this case, they have arrows that point, like in this case, they're pointing in these directions here from those hexes. From these hexes, they're pointing from here. These hexes here, they're pointing straight that way, and so on and so forth. Now, when the monsters move, they will move in those straight lines. They also will not, they also can only have 1 monster per spot or what have you, and they'll move in those locations. Remember, like goblins do move a little faster, as I told you before, but they will just move, this inexorable march towards the town. And depending upon when you there's different locations. Like whenever you hit the crossed axes on one of these spots, that is when you will draw one of these cards and put more monsters on the board. So the monsters keep coming and keep coming and keep coming, and they get reinforcements. They also, when they get to the bottom of these 2 tracks, they do what's called a charge, meaning that they move twice. So they just start moving faster and faster. You'll also notice that there are these roads that are located here and here. If a monster ever reaches a road, they will stop moving like their original direction is, and they will just start following the road, trying to make their way into Grimheim. Any monster that makes into Grimheim is killed, but they remove one of the buildings, basically the hit points of your village for each one that enters that. If a boss monster makes it in there, they will remove more. If a boss monster ever manages to make it into the village of Grimheim, they'll remove 3 total pieces as well. So you don't want to let boss monsters into the village, because you're probably going to lose if that happens. I should mention, if let's say for example, my dwarf was right here for whatever reason, and this goblin ended their move in this location here. If a monster could attack you, if they could move again, they do an individual charge. So in this case, this goblin would move forward that 1 to attack my dwarf. You need to make sure that you always check for that. Also, if you have a situation where a monster, let's say this monster was right next to this character here, and this monster is adjacent to that character, that monster won't move. It will stay exactly where it is because it wants to stay there and attack the hero that's in it. And that applies to all the monsters. They will stay next to a character in that spot. You should use that to your advantage as well, right? Let your hero kind of basically be a tar pit that the monsters will stick on, and they won't move forward into and attack the village. There are going to be lots of situations where you'll have a character basically standing right there, holding the line, letting these monsters pelt them over and over again with their attacks, because if they don't stay there, the monsters are going to move into the village and you're going to lose. But what if your character loses all their hit points, right? The monsters attack and they succeed and they lose all their hit points. What happens then? Well, you don't die, you're not out of the game, but you immediately go back to the village. Your mother comes, this is in the rules, your mother comes out and saves your life. And you get to remove all of the damage but 5. So you get to so you're still wounded. So it's not the best end, because the village is so disheartened that one of its heroes fell, the village loses 2 hit points as well. So don't get killed. If you can avoid it, whatever you do, don't get killed. There are special abilities and powers that the different heroes have that allow them to heal each other, heal different wounds, things like that. So there are ways to heal yourself beyond the mend with equipment and abilities. So make sure you explore those, and also through event cards as well. Make sure you explore those as you're playing, because being able to stay out and fight without having to race back to the village to heal is really the only way you're going to win. All right, so I talked about a lot of things. Monsters moving. So there is the option, if you want to make the game more difficult, you have the option of adding this monster die. When you roll the monster die, it'll basically make the monsters act in an unpredictable and chaotic way, whether it's extra movement or what have you. So this is suggested to be only played on an expert level. So just keep that in mind. But you can ramp up the difficulty by adding the random monster die, the added malevolence, if you will, the monsters can have. All right, so I was going to talk about combat. Combat is really, really, really simple. I mean, it is a luck-based combat die situation, but if you're going to attack something, so let's say my dwarf here is holding ground on these 3 imps that are moving into attack, and he's going to attack one of them. All I do is I look, and so I'm not going to attack the one in the forest because I want to be able to hit him. So I'm going to attack this one that's right in front of me. And I notice that I have a 3 strength here, and my weapon gives me an extra 1. And so you just total up those dice, and then you roll them. And so in this case, I got a rune, and I got 1 hit. So that wasn't enough to actually kill it, because these have 2 hit points. And it's going to be really, really tough to see, but each one of these tokens actually tells you how many attack dice it has, and what you get for defeating it. In this case, this imp is going to be worth 1 experience if I kill it, and how many hit points they have. But if I would put a mark on there to show that it had been damaged once, so I can keep track of the hit points. Let's just say I did it. I killed those 2, so I'm boom, I kill it. You just remove this, put it back into the supply, and then you get the reward. You take the experience for killing that. Now remember, I had, that was my attack, since I can't attack again. Maybe if I had one more experience on here, I could, if I had one more, sorry, let's say like I had that 3 experience on my ability, I could take those 3, spend that experience, and I can make another attack. So like maybe I can kill it. So let's see if I can kill that one. Maybe I'll actually roll better this time. Roll these 4 dice. There you go. 2 hits. So then I'd kill that one. And now, as you can see, this is when you start using your different abilities and powers and having these kind of tactical decisions. And then, because there's that one in the forest, I have my short temper card. I'm going to play that. Why? Because this thing only has 2 hit points. I don't have to worry about the fact that it has cover in the forest. I'm just going to play that card, and I'm going to take it out. Just like that. The monsters work exactly the same. Like, say this monster right here, this goblin is right next to this hero. It gets 1 die. You're going to roll that die and see if you get a hit. It is a blank. You're lucky. Nothing happens. Combats, I like the fact that the combats aren't, I roll a bunch of attack dice, somebody else rolls a bunch of defense dice. There's 7,000 different things and attributes that you have to check. Nope, just 1 die roll, done. Apply the damage, move on. Super cool. Super straightforward, and it doesn't bog the game down at all. So there you go. A little bit all over the place, a lot of different, but the thing about this is it's just like any other game that seemingly has a ton of rules that are going on in the game, but once you play 1 or 2 rounds, the game just clicks along. And combined with, I mean, I've played games like this before. I played the whole save the tower type games. But this one really, really stood out for me as far as like the fun factor for one, but also like the hidden depth that really took me by surprise that I wasn't expecting when I read the rules and I said I'd take a look at it. I wasn't expecting to have the depth that it did. But let me talk about that, and let me talk about how it takes that depth and like applies that like relatively simple rule set and basically makes a game that is quick, engaging, and kind of a surprise hit with my gaming group. It's just not the same. Anyway, so there you go. That is Grimheim. No, Fate. The Defenders of Grimheim. All right. So I mean, this is one of those games where I think a lot of people are going to look at it and they're going to know whether or not it's going to fit in their wheelhouse or not, just from the looks of it. And if you're watching this video, I'm guessing that you've been around the block or two when it comes to the designer board game hobby. So if you like games that have dice combat, if you like games that have kind of a random utterance, if you will, a reveal moment, a like, oh my gosh, where the monster is going to go this round kind of thing. You're going to be liking this. If you're somebody who likes characters that you can adapt and grow as the game continues and use tactical decisions while discussing that with your friends, this is a game you're going to like. And on its just bare bones level, because of that, because of the fact that like I have a group of friends that, we are huge fans of cooperative games. I mean, the game that got me into the hobby, really, and the game that got me into doing this YouTube channel and everything like that was Arkham Horror. So I mean, it's my wheelhouse. It's the stuff that I really enjoy. But what I mentioned as I talked about the game, like it had this like surprising hidden depth, if you will, and it took me a while to figure it out. Like I was like, wow. I mean, it's one of those things where when you're playing a game, and I don't know if you've experienced this, but you're sitting down, you're playing a game, and you're just like, wow, I'm really having fun. Like, and it's kind of tough to get that way if you played hundreds and hundreds of games of different games or whatever. If you've been playing these games and these hobbies for as long as you have, it's tough to get it. If you're just diving into it and like it's fun when you meet new people and they've never played designer board games before, and you sit down and they start playing it. You hear those things where they say, "I didn't know games like this even existed. This is amazing," and they're playing something like that, right? So it's one of those things where that feeling of like, oh my gosh, this is like super cool, like to experience it after you've been doing something for a long time, if you've been playing different types of games, and like it's kind of refreshing, and it doesn't happen a lot, at least for me, but it happened with this. And like I said, it took me a while to kind of like dive into it and figure out why was this just kind of just hitting that for lack of a better term, hitting that dopamine button for my brain over and over again. And then it was one of those things where I was lying in bed, getting ready for bed, and I was kind of, reading a book and just sitting there, and all of a sudden it just, but I wasn't really reading the book because I was thinking about the game, and it hit me. I mean, because I played games like this before, I played things like this before, but what I hadn't played before is just in a game like this that it contains the ability to really adapt your character in a way that is a little bit random, because the way the decks are set up, you can't really, you kind of have to like maybe filter through and do whatever, but it gives you an incredible, lots of games out there will let you upgrade characters, right? It's like, and you'll like go on this, like get this, like you draw a card and you get this spell, or turn this tile over and you get like some gold or what have you, right? But they have this wonderful process of like the 3 different decks, right? The event cards that give you those special abilities that are one-time uses, the abilities that you then choose to upgrade as well if you wish, and then the equipments with the quests. And there's this wonderful balancing act that each player has to do, given at any given moment, of where they want to go, to do what they want to do, to try to get their character, to make them more powerful, right? Level up, get more power, you do cooler, neater things, but you also need to protect the town. And so you almost, in the way, you're like, each player is taking a turn. It's like, okay, it's your turn now. You go and finish that quest and take care of that and get that piece of equipment that you want to use, so it'll be useful later. The rest of the players, we got this. We're going to go ahead and we're going to do that. And I love that. I love the fact that it added another level of that cooperation that is. Because what's fun when you play any type of game, whether it is a board game, whether it is playing a game of video game or anything, it's the leveling up. It's getting the new stuff. And you're kind of helping each other, give them that opportunity. Like, we got this. We'll hold off the giants this round. You go get that cool special ability. Get that cool special ability. Make your character better. Make him more cool, so you can do cool stuff later. And I don't know. Maybe I played a game that has that before, but nothing was really coming to mind. And this one just really, really shone through for me. And it was one of those things where it's like, it's cool to be powerful and like, I crushed the undead and I won this. But it's also really cool to be like, just kind of stand back and watch somebody else do something awesome, knowing that you kind of helped them down that path to get that. And maybe I'm putting too much into this, or maybe I'm like putting way too much more into that. But I remember like just being really, really excited for the other players, my family, admittedly, but I was really, really excited for my son and my daughter when they were like able to do something super cool. And part of it was because I was just seeing how excited they were. But also part of it was the fact that I knew that I had kind of helped them do that. And they were like, cool, thanks for letting that giant smack you in the head, Dad. Now I got this new weapon. And yeah, it was kind of a nice moment. Something I'll remember. And if it hadn't been for the game, I wouldn't have had that happen. Anyway. I mentioned the solo game. I probably should have said that before I told that story. But the solo game is awesome. It just is. It works really well playing as a one-player game. It's something that I find myself playing one-player games more and more often now. And I for whatever reason, it's just, well, I know what the reason is. I'm up late or I'm up early and I want to play a solo game. And I used to play all my solo games on computers and stuff like that. And just recently, it just isn't the case. I'm really, really enjoying putting a board game out on the table myself and just letting it sit there and playing it and going through it. Most of those games are like war games and what have you. But here you go. This was one that sat on my my gaming table, which is over that way about 10 feet, and just sat there for a good week and a half. I must have played 4 or 5 sessions of it. Just super fun. I finally got past that horrible feeling of maybe I didn't roll 3 misses when I did that, and just let the games play out, win or lose. And it was just kind of fun. It tells a story, especially with all the adventures and stuff going on. It felt kind of like a D&D game or whatever. A D&D game that I could play by myself and tell a little story about my courageous hero trying to save his hometown. It was fun. So if you're a solo gamer, I strongly suggest checking this one as well. So there you go. That is Fate, Defenders of Grimheim. If you have any questions about this game or anything in general, go ahead and place those in the comments. I read every single comment I get on anything. I will answer those to the best of my ability. As always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. I appreciate it very much. I should do more of these, and I'm going to try to do more of these. And I say that every year, and I never do it, but maybe this is the year. Maybe this is the year that the old man winter finally starts pumping some stuff out to talk about games and life and whatever in general. But until next time, I'm the Undead Viking. Be the best version of you that you possibly can be. I'm rooting for you. Until next time, take care of yourself. Goodbye.